This is Project Management Paradise.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Project Management Paradise podcast, your passport to project success. I'm your host, Aaron Murphy, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Carol Cohn. Carol has been a pioneer in the purpose movement for over 35 years. She currently leads Carol Cohn on Purpose, aimed at advancing purpose strategies for corporations, brands, nonprofits, and professionals worldwide. She is also the host of the Purpose 360 podcast, a masterclass in identifying, embedding, and activating purpose. Carol, thank you so much for being on the podcast. How are you today?
I am great, and I'm thrilled to be on your show.
I'm grateful to have you on the show. It's great to have a fellow podcaster join me on air. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Carol, for anyone who doesn't know you or may not be familiar with you, maybe you could tell us about yourself and your background and how you ended up becoming an expert in corporate culture and leadership.
Sure. And I'd like to say that I'm an expert in purpose. And I believe that purpose, what an organization stands for authentically, beyond the bottom line, based in humanity, that is at the core. The wisest leadership puts that at the core of their culture and then their growth and their business and their leadership. So that's why when I got introduced to your podcast, I said, I really want to be on it. So thank you very much. People ask me, why do I do what I do? And I grew up during the civil rights movement and the Vietnam War years. And my parents were fairly liberal. And so when I started leading into my career, it was somewhat by serendipity that we had the years of the student strike where we took over buildings where I went to college, and I didn't burn any, but we did protest, and we created something called the National Strike Information Center. And it was my first, experience in organizing and communicating and such. Also went to Washington and marched on Washington with my cohort and my peers. And so when it finally came down time to go into my career, I love brands, and I also felt social justice was really important. And my superpower is connection making. And in 1983, that's when I was really young, the Rockport Shoe Company came to me and said, I want to build our brand. It was only $25 million. And I went, okay, we'll try, because these shoes they were a Nike inner and a street shoe outer. Comfortable shoe. Surprise, a comfortable shoe. Good for hiking and walking and things like that. And they were our first, we didn't know the word purpose. In those days, the word was cause marketing. But we helped them become the leader of the walking movement in the country. Reebok bought them. Then we worked with Reebok and Human Rights. Then Avon came to us and asked, could you do what you've done before for us to really get us closer to women? And we created the Breast Cancer Crusade that went to 50 countries around the globe. So it's been so exciting because I've had the opportunity to shape, what is this practice? Why is it authentic? How can it drive culture, leadership, and business, as well as impact society?
So your career had a running start. Excuse the term.
It did. Yes, it did have a running and a walking start.
Absolutely. And why is it important for a company to have a purpose?
A purpose is it's a compass. And when a company truly goes through the exercise, and it is not, I must say what it's not. It is not the leadership team going off on a retreat. We're going to figure out our purpose. It is going, as we worked with the Kerry Group in Ireland and on their global purpose to really identify it. And one of my favorite people there said, this is a journey to the center of our soul. And when you do interviews, and we interviewed 200 people across the world for Kerry, and then we went to 10 different locations, where they had plants and such. And from the top to the bottom, so the guy and the gal on the factory floor, we had 2-day workshops to ask them how they felt about the company, what was real, how would they feel on their very best day at work. And so it was very, very authentic and was so exciting. And we got to introduce that purpose. And we worked right with the CEO, Edmund Scanlon, He joined Kerry. He was a farmer. He joined Kerry in his youth. He was, I think, only third CEO in their history. And we introduced it with him in Killarney. It was magic. And we had people crying in their leadership team. It was really, and I can tell you what it is, but I can wait for a moment.
And how does a company actually find its purpose, out of curiosity?
Sure. By a lot of listening and a lot of really inviting colleagues to comment on, what is authentic to them? Where are they going? What do they stand for? And people would use lots of different words. And you listen. We're a guide. What I have become with my colleagues at Carroll Cohen on Purpose now is that we're guides to help leadership, the C-suite, truly, again, it's a journey to the center of their soul. We have a process called P3, and it's a precision purpose programming. And we learned it over decades that there's a process by which there's reading materials, there's interviewing people. There's also, that's inside out. There's also the outside in. What do others perceive you as? What are your core competencies there? What do you do better than anybody else? What can you bring to the table? It's really, really important. The core audience for purpose is the employee, because the employees, they're the engine of an organization. And the reason to have a purpose is clarity and direction and excitement. And it truly helps an organization, especially in these really challenging times, to say, this is where we're going, and really to tune out some of the cacophony around them, and then live it and breathe it and make sure the values support it. So you might fine tune the values, but the behaviors, again, you're talking about culture. What are the behaviors that our purpose focuses on?
Actively listening to the employees, probably a really good trait of
it's really key. Yeah. And in today, leadership is no longer command and control. I'm the leader and this is where we're going. It has to be because of, especially Gen Z. Gen Z, absolutely. The number one thing they want is they want a life. They want a life, not just a working life. And they would say that's the number one thing over their benefits and their salary. But equal to benefits and salary is, what does the organization stand for? What are its values? What is the team I'm joining into? And here's a simple thing for your listeners. Does anybody wake up in the morning and go, yeah, I want to make money for the guy or the gal who's leading the company, or the shareholders? No, I want to do something. I want to have an impact on the world. And that's what was amazing about Kerry, because the purpose that we created, it was so great, because we took the purpose finally to the senior leadership team, all the leaders, there's about 15 of them. And we had 2 words. And Edmund Scanlon, CEO, he added something to it. And it's basically their purpose is inspiring food, because they're the world's largest food ingredients company. Inspiring food, period, nourishing life. And nourishing life means our employees' lives, where we source our wonderful ingredients, the communities, our supplier, relationships. Inspiring food, because that's what we do. They're in 70% of the world's food products. I mean, who knew? They're over 110 countries. It's amazing. And they have utilized this as their compass to make decisions about innovation, about recruiting, retention. How do we act? What are our behaviors? It's extraordinary. I have been inside a company, and it's really hard. I mean, it took almost a year to develop this with Kerry, and we work with the board, and we work with their senior team, we work with their employees. But when you introduce it and you've got it spot on, that's why we had employees crying. This is us. So it's an amazing when you do it right.
Could you actually repeat that one more time? Because I just want to hear how impactful that line is.
It's amazing when you do it right, that line.
The Yeah, exactly. I think that's a really good line to get right for anyone,
Well,
no matter
and
what the role or career.
the key word absolutely is authentic. And, there's so much pink washing, green washing, purpose washing, all sorts of washing. And before the internet, you could make any claims that you wanted and nobody could really find it out. Now that there's radical transparency in terms of a supply chain, a supplier, do you have child, Carrie didn't, but is there child labor involved? The chocolate industry is being turned inside out because children were picking the cocoa, buds. And, so now there's Tony's Chocolonely that is totally, from the base, to point of sale, it is totally true and authentic. And they tell their stories. And so when companies both have their products and services and they know exactly, this is our core competencies, and then they embed it and knit it into what are we doing in society and how are we contributing to the environment. And companies have to. They've got to lower their carbon footprint. They've got to save water. They've got to use solar. I mean, there's all sorts of things that companies have to do, and they're saving money. They save money on the environmental side. On the societal side, they can save by lowering turnover of employees. They can recruit and retain the best ones. They can innovate. They can work with their supply chain. And if you have a relationship with your suppliers, they're going to bring you the best ideas. And what's also happening for your listeners is that, and I'm sure many of them have said, yeah, when they get RFPs to bid on something, a piece of business, it asks about your societal engagement and your environmental footprint. It's so exciting that when we started out, nobody talked about that. You didn't have the transparency of the internet. Now you do. And the game has changed.
Absolutely. And ESG is such an important factor for many, many organizations around the world now.
And I have to give a head, tap to Europe, because Europe is leading in ESG regulations and how a company has to act, whether it's transparency in terms of its communications or whether it's reporting. So, the U.S., we're still kind of dragging our feet. But of course, we always talk about California's leading in the U.S. That's like a country in itself.
The Republic of California.
It's the Republic of California. Yes, absolutely.
And just to circle back, we mentioned about how listening is a good trait of a corporate leader. Is there many other traits or maybe secrets that represents a good corporate leader?
Sure. Well, first of all, and I'm going to I love the Queen. And the Queen was the Queen of England. She was, right? She was a servant leader. It wasn't about her. It was about how she showed up with centuries of tradition to serve the people. So first, overall, the best leaders of today, they've shifted from command and control to being a servant. That's the first thing. Second thing is that, and a good servant, they know their purpose. They have guided their company, or they've rediscovered or evolved. Many companies might have a purpose, but they need to make it relevant today. You can buff it up a bit. So, what is their purpose? Then what is the role of that leader? And the role of a leader is to inspire, is to create momentum, and so that the organization is moving forward, especially when there's a challenge, when there's a war, when there's, supply chain problems, when there's COVID. I need to say, be relevant. Then be clear on who you serve. It is not yourself. It's your employees. It's your supply chain. It is your partners in your business. It's your communities. So you have their stakeholders, not shareholders. So it goes beyond that. And then values and behaviors, really having crisp values, but it's not like integrity, collaboration. I mean, there's like 5 words everybody uses. What is that? It's about the behaviors that express how I'm supposed to act if indeed I am supposed to be about collaboration. And then the last thing is total authenticity. Is that, even if you can't get it done, say, look, we can't get it done today. Let's work together to embed our purpose, to live our purpose, and we have to be authentic about it. And then reporting back a lot. quarterly fireside chats, not just in the ESG or the CSR report.
Yeah, and a leader that's down in the trenches with the workers, rolling up their sleeves.
I love that. I love that you said that. When there are problems, that they show up. If a plant's the problem, there's a water problem, something happened in the community, that they show up, they roll up their sleeves and say, "How are we going to solve this?"
Rather than delegating on to the next person in line.
And it's no, not a good leader today.
No, and even that, like, is there any traits of a leader to be wary of?
Yeah, arrogance. I mean, arrogance is one, and I'd also, dare I say, and everyone in this listens, and having a compensation that is in somewhat of alignment with, realistically with employees. Some of these compensation schemes, I'm sorry, that are 100 times more than an employee, that are billions of dollars. I mean, I know Elon Musk is trying to get that, and yes, he set goals, and if he reaches those goals, he's going to get $56 billion. What does someone do with $56 billion? I would like to see them give back to society, but so there needs to be a relative opportunity, both, yes, I'm going to work hard, and it's a hell of a job. It's a tough job to be a CEO these days. It really, really is. You lose a lot of sleep. But if you listen to your employees and you've got humility versus arrogance, they'll follow you. They'll follow you. There's a great, great quote from Fast Company that I always use. And it says, "A company without purpose has to manage people and resources. But a company with purpose mobilizes people and resources." And it brings out the human energy that is where creativity, where problem solving comes from. I have lived it. I've seen it. Is extraordinary.
I really like that quote. It's hard hitting, say it so to speak.
Absolutely. That's why I love this work. That's why I want more. Somebody asked me the other day, "You gonna retire?" I go, "Are you kidding me?" It's hard to do the work every day, but if you're seeing culture shift, if you're seeing people blossom, if you're seeing great innovation on the ground, within the company, outside, why would I give up that? And I also love to mentor. Love, 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 especially young people. I love seeing the young people that are filled with moxie. It is great.
You're using your years of experience, diluting it down so that they don't have to go through maybe the struggles of 1 or 2 years of
right. So
hardship.
I'll give you my joke. I use it in all my speeches. When I started this work, and I started in 1983, I was 6 feet tall. Well, you can't see me, but I'm only 5 feet tall. So people always laugh, and I go, "I'm not gonna get any shorter. I've given it up." I once dropped to the floor in front of a CEO when they were going to do something that was so bad and so risky. And this fellow said, "Oh, I guess you're really real about this." I went, "Yeah, we're committed to it."
I'd love to see their faces when you do that.
Well, you don't have to go too far when you're 5 feet tall and you have to fall to the floor.
And you touched on earlier about how it's important for suppliers to be viewed as partners. Maybe you could touch on that a bit more. Why is it important to look at suppliers as partners rather than as vendors?
Yeah. Vendors, usually what happens is you're put through the gauntlet of procurement to get the cheapest price. And there's a great Paul Pullman, who is one of the world's leaders, if not the leader, in terms of purpose and really changing the whole face of a company, which he did at Unilever for 10 years, and he gave a 300% return. And in his book, Net Positive, which is a great book, he said, and there's only a couple of pages, but he said, if you have a partnership with your suppliers, you treat them fairly, you are authentic, you are transparent, you bring them into your needs and conversations early enough, the suppliers will come back, and because there's a relationship now, you are more of a partner, not a vendor. They will bring you the best new ideas. And who doesn't want the best new ideas? So it's a really key part of his book and his success. And I just love that point.
I'll be picking up a copy of that after this call just to get some inside knowledge.
Yep.
And we have this reoccurring question that we like to ask on the podcast, and I'm looking forward to hearing your answer. But
Sure.
what has been the most important piece of advice you've received, and how has it helped you in your career?
I think it was like it's an and an and and an and. The advice that I got was be very persistent. And someone told me once that a great salesman gets 9 no's before they get a yes. And so I know a lot of people, myself, you've got a great idea and you're trying to sell it and you get a no. That just means you need to get to yes. And so that would be the best one. I would always, also the whole issue about being authentic. I mean, really being true to yourself, true to who you're working with. If you can't get something done, explain why. So that's really, really important. And then also being insane. I'm giving you more than one. Being insanely curious and being a voracious reader. Because again, and the last one, here's another one, is know your superpower. My superpower is connection making. And I think knowing your superpower and really utilizing it in your career, in your relationships, some of my best ideas came from connection making. So I love my superpower.
I love that. As a superhero fanatic, I will definitely be trying to determine what my one is next.
Yep.
Carol, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I've really, really enjoyed our conversations. So many great nuggets of information to take from it. But the final question that I have for you today is, if anyone was interested in reaching out to you, learning more about Carol Cohen on Purpose, or even where to find your podcast, Purpose 360, where's the best place to reach you?
Thank you. Well, I would just Google it, frankly. But, I'm Carol Cohen on Purpose. I love to share my knowledge liberally. And we didn't say the fact that to shape the whole field, we've done over 30 pieces of research since 1993, and we have shared all of those reports and those studies. And that's why I started doing the podcast in 2018, because there's many generations that are now coming into doing purpose work. I have so many young people and even middle-aged people who say, I'm stopping this job. I want to do something that makes a difference. And so Purpose 360, our website, we have cases, et cetera, et cetera. We also have Purposeful Connections, which is our newsletter. Sign up because we're constantly trying to share knowledge so that you, listener, do not have to go from 6 feet tall to 5 feet tall. You can reach to the stars, stay really, really robust, and have an amazing career and have an impact on the world.
Amazing. Carol, thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Project Management Paradise podcast at projectmanagementparadise.com. Links mentioned during the episode, including speaker profile details and other resources, are available in the podcast description and on projectmanagementparadise.com, where you can also download or stream all our episodes to date.